Hello all and welcome back to the YouTube channel of All Day Chess. Today we got a banger endgame where a brilliant move by white gives him the win. And this endgame study is quite awesome, so without further ado, let's get straight away into the study. So, as you guys saw by the thumbnail and everything, bishop d5 is brilliant. But why is it so brilliant? Why don't other moves work? And all that. But before we go into any of that, just look at the position. White has two minor pieces, and black has a pawn. And each side has a king, of course. This pawn is about to promote, so we need to make sure it does not promote, then black would be winning. Our king is somewhat close to the pawn, but I don't know, it's not as close as maybe it could be, such as a b4 square or something like that. But now we have to see. We also have to keep in mind that king and knight versus king is not checkmate. It's physically impossible to checkmate. But if black has an extra pawn like we saw in last study, it is possible because black can self-stalemate himself, right? But if it's only knight and king versus king, it's impossible to win. Same with bishop. King and bishop versus king, impossible to win. So now we have to see, what are some other moves and what makes bishop d5 so well or so good? For example, if we play king d2, try and get opposition. Right? They can simply play a3, and now they're about to promote their pawn in two squares. So we simply have to capture, and then what did we say? King and bishop versus king is a draw. But then what if they don't capture? What if they try and play bishop here or something? Well, then you push your pawn again, and they can't do anything. Knight f6, you simply queen, and now black is the one who's winning. So now they simply have to capture here, and then what did we say again? King and knight versus king. This is going to be a draw. So now what if they move their knight somewhere? Let's see. What if they play knight to here? And maybe knight to c2 after. You push the pawn. Pawn is unstoppable. Then knight comes here. Push the pawn. Bishop attacks it. You still keep pushing the pawn. And the thing that really bums out is if this bishop was dark squared, then it would be easier because we could put the bishop on this diagonal right here. And when they queen, it's check. And then they have to move their king somewhere, and then we can take their queen. And bishop and knight versus king, with your king of course, is winning endgame. So obviously they don't want that to happen for black. So now last thing, bishop. Well, what if we move our bishop somewhere else? Let's say bishop to e4. That looks probably just as good, right? Guard all these squares. Okay, I'll push the pawn. And now what do? You can't do anything. Bishop b1, maybe try and stop it, but no, there's nothing. And then check. Yeah, there's really nothing in this position. You can just give me a bunch of checks and I'm fine with it. But you don't gain anything out of it, right? So the trick is bishop d5. It's so brilliant because after a3, which is what they're going to play, right? a3, you have unbelievable bishop to a2 move. Now this stops the pawn from promoting. So we got that out of our way. Now this king can capture this bishop. So we might be wondering, oh no, did we just blunder? King here. Oh no, what did we do? But now we have king c2. Brilliant move. The king can't come to any of these squares because of this king. So their only move possible is king to a1. And now, like last video, remember? When the king was on the corner, we went to d4, e2, c1, and b3 for the checkmate. Just like that, you can play knight to d4. You might be wondering, after king here, why no knight b3? Because this isn't checkmate anymore, and this is actually a complete draw. It's stalemate, which means black can't move, and black is not in check. Whereas, if they don't play king to a2, if they try and play a2 themselves, then knight b3 is a wonderful checkmate. Now let's see. After knight to d4, king back to a2, knight to e2, they still can't do anything else, so they have to play king to a1, knight to c1, and now this square is guarded, so they have to play a2, and we have knight to b3, which is a wonderful checkmate. So, bishop d5, the idea then is to play bishop a2. But what if they try something else? What can they do? Well, if they play something like king b1, then we can even just play knight here, knight to c3, and now when the king comes here, we take, and two pieces, we know that we can give a checkmate with those two pieces, right? So now they can't play that. So that's why a3, they play a3 trying to promote their pawn. But little do they realize, bishop a2, it stops them from promoting. And the king has to take, right? Or else the bishop is just there blocking them from promoting, and the pawn can't capture like this. So the king has to take. And after king to c2, they can't do anything. They're basically blocked. This pawn is blocking the king's escape. And the king can't come to any of these squares. And this king is blocking this pawn. So everything is super smushed up for black. So their only move is king to a1, knight to d4. If they play a2, remember, knight b3. And if they play king to a2, then we just keep going. Now they have to play a2, and knight to b3 is a wonderful checkmate. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope to see you soon.